OK, there's one more place you might be interested in. That's got a rather strange name. It's called the Aretsa Centre. That's spelled A-R-R-E-T-S-A.
OK.
They've got a very good reputation. They do a bit of meat and fish cookery, but they mostly specialise in vegetarian dishes.
Right. That's certainly an area I'd like to learn more about. I've got lots of friends who don't eat meat. In fact, I think I might have seen that school today. Is it just by the market?
That's right. So they don't have any problem getting their ingredients. They're right next door. And they also offer a special 2-hour course in how to use a knife. They cover all the different skills, buying them, sharpening, chopping techniques. It gets booked up quickly though, so you'd need to check it was available.
Right, well, thank you very much. I'll go and check that out.
Section 2.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Phil Sutton, and I'm chairman of the Highways Committee. We've called this meeting to inform members of the public about the new regulations for traffic and parking we're proposing for Granford. I'll start by summarising these changes before we open the meeting to questions. So, why do we need to make these changes to traffic systems in Granford? Well, we're very aware that traffic is becoming an increasing problem. It's been especially noticeable with the increase in heavy traffic while they've been building the new hospital. But it's the overall rise in the volume of traffic of all kinds that's concerning us. To date, there's not been any increase in traffic accidents, but that's not something we want to see happen, obviously. We recently carried out a survey of local residents, and their responses were interesting. People were very concerned about the lack of visibility on some roads due to cars parked along the sides of the roads. We'd expected complaints about the congestion near the school when parents are dropping off their children or picking them up. But this wasn't top of the list, and nor were noise and fumes from trucks and lorries, though they were mentioned by some people. We think these new traffic regulations would make a lot of difference, but we still have a long way to go. We've managed to keep our proposals within budget, just so they can be covered by the council. But of course it's no good introducing new regulations if we don't have a way of making sure that everyone obeys them. And that's an area we're still working on with the help of representatives from the police force. OK, so this slide shows a map of the central area of Granford with the High Street in the middle and School Road on the right. Now, we already have a set of traffic lights in the High Street at the junction with Station Road, but we're planning to have another set at the other end at the School Road junction to regulate the flow of traffic along the High Street. We've decided we definitely need a pedestrian crossing. We considered putting this on School Road just outside the school, but in the end we decided that could lead to a lot of traffic congestion. So we decided to locate it on the High Street, crossing the road in front of the supermarket. That's a very busy area, so it should help things there. We're proposing some changes to parking. At present, parking isn't allowed on the High Street outside the library, but we're going to change that and allow parking there, but not at the other end of the High Street near School Road. There'll be a new no parking sign on School Road just by the entrance to the school, forbidding parking for 25 metres. This should improve visibility for drivers and pedestrians, especially on the bend just to the north of the school. As far as disabled drivers are concerned, at present they have parking outside the supermarket, but lorries also use those spaces, so we've got 2 new disabled parking spaces on the side road up towards the bank. It's not ideal, but probably better than the present arrangement. We also plan to widen the pavement on School Road. We think we can manage to get an extra half metre on the bend just before you get to the school, on the same side of the road. Finally, we've introduced new restrictions on loading and unloading for the supermarket, so lorries will only be allowed to stop there before 8 a.m. That's the supermarket on School Road. We kept to the existing arrangements with the High Street supermarket. OK, so that's about it.
Section 3.
We've got to choose a topic for our experiment, haven't we, Jack? Were you thinking of something to do with seeds?
That's right. I thought we could look at seed germination, how a seed begins to grow.
OK. Any particular reason? I know you're hoping to work in plant science eventually.
Yeah, but practically everything we do is going to feed into that. No, there's an optional module on seed structure and function in the 3rd year that I might do. So I thought it might be useful for that. If I choose that option, I don't have to do a dissertation module.
Good idea.
Well, I thought for this experiment, we could look at the relationship between seed size and the way the seeds are planted. So we could plant different sized seeds in different ways and see which grow best.
OK. We'd need to allow time for the seeds to come up.
That should be fine if we start now. A lot of the other possible experiments need quite a bit longer.
So that'd make it a good one to choose. And I don't suppose it'd need much equipment. We're not doing chemical analysis or anything. Though that's not really an issue. We've got plenty of equipment in the laboratory.
Yeah, we need to have a word with the tutor if we're going to go ahead with it, though. I'm sure our aim's okay. It's not very ambitious, but the assignment's only 10% of our final mark, isn't it? But we need to be sure we're the only ones doing it.
Yeah, it's only 5% actually. But it'd be a bit boring if everyone was doing it.
Did you read that book on seed germination on our reading list?
The one by Graves? I looked through it for my last experiment, though it wasn't all that relevant there. It would be for this experiment, though. I found it quite hard to follow. Lots about the theory, which I hadn't expected.
Yes, I'd been hoping for something more practical. It does include references to the recent findings on genetically modified seeds, though.
Yes, that was interesting.
I read an article about seed germination by Lee Hall.
About seeds that lie in the ground for ages and only germinate after a fire.
That's the one. I knew a bit about it already, but not about this research. His analysis of figures comparing the times of the fires and the proportion of seeds that germinated was done in a lot of detail. Very impressive.
Was that the article with the illustrations of early stages of plant development? They were very clear.
I think those diagrams were in another article.
Anyway, shall we have a look at the procedure for our experiment? We'll need to get going with it quite soon.
Right. So the first thing we have to do is find our seeds. I think vegetable seeds would be best, and obviously they mustn't all be the same size. So how many sorts do we need? About 4 different ones?
I think that would be enough. There'll be quite a large number of seeds for each one.
Then for each seed, we need to find out how much it weighs and also measure its dimensions. And we need to keep a careful record of all that.
That'll be quite time-consuming. And we also need to decide how deep we're going to plant the seeds. Right on the surface, a few millimeters down, or several centimeters.
Okay, so then we get planting. Do you think we can plant several seeds together in the same plant pot?
No, I think we need a different one for each seed.
Right. And we'll need to label them. We can use different coloured labels. Then we wait for the seeds to germinate. I reckon that'll be about 3 weeks, depending on what the weather's like. Then we see if our plants have come up and write down how tall they've grown.
Then all we have to do is look at our numbers and see if there's any relation between them.
That's right. So then...
Section 4.
Hi. Today we're going to be looking at animals in urban environments. And I'm going to be telling you about some research on how they're affected by these environments. Now, in evolutionary terms, urban environments represent huge upheavals, the sorts of massive changes that usually happen over millions of years. And we used to think that only a few species could adapt to this new environment. One species which is well known as being highly adaptable is the crow, and there have been various studies about how they manage to learn new skills. Another successful species is the pigeon, because they're able to perch on ledges on the walls of city buildings, just like they once perched on cliffs by the sea. But in fact, we're now finding that these early immigrants were just the start of a more general movement of animals into cities, and of adaptation by these animals to city life. And one thing that researchers are finding especially interesting is the speed with which they're doing this. We're not talking about gradual evolution here. These animals are changing fast. Let me tell you about some of the studies that have been carried out in this area. So, in the University of Minnesota, a biologist called Emily Snellrud and her colleagues looked at specimens of urbanized small mammals such as mice and gophers that had been collected in Minnesota and that are now kept in museums there. And she looked at specimens that had been collected over the last 100 years, which is a very short time in evolutionary terms. And she found that during that time, these small mammals had experienced a jump in brain size when compared to rural mammals. Now, we can't be sure this means they're more intelligent, but since the sizes of other parts of the body didn't change, it does suggest that something cognitive was going on. And Snellrud thinks that this change might reflect the cognitive demands of adjusting to city life, having to look in different places to find food, for example, and coping with a whole new set of dangers. Then over in Germany, at the Max Planck Institute, there's another biologist called Katharina Miranda, who's done some experiments with blackbirds living in urban and rural areas. And she's been looking not at their anatomy, but at their behavior. So, as you might expect, she's found that the urban blackbirds tend to be quite bold. They're prepared to face up to a lot of threats that would frighten away their country counterparts. But there's one type of situation that does seem to frighten the urban blackbirds, and that's anything new, anything they haven't experienced before. And if you think about it, that's quite sensible for a bird living in the city. Jonathan Atwell, in Indiana University, is looking at how a range of animals respond to urban environments. He's found that when they're under stress, their endocrine systems react by reducing the amount of hormones such as corticosterone into their blood. It's a sensible-seeming adaptation. A rat that gets scared every time a subway train rolls past won't be very successful. There's just one more study I'd like to mention, which is by Sarah Parton and her team. And they've been looking at how squirrels communicate in an urban environment. And they've found that a routine part of their communication is carried out by waving their tails. You do also see this in the country, but it's much more prevalent in cities, possibly because it's effective in a noisy environment. So, what are the long-term implications of this? One possibility is that we may see completely new species developing in cities. But on the other hand, it's possible that not all of these adaptations will be permanent. Once the animals got accustomed to its new environment, it may no longer need the features it's developed. So now we've had a look at adaptation.
How to learn English faster and more effectively. Not just studying more, but studying in a smarter way.
That's right. We know learning a new language takes time, patience, and dedication, but the way you study can make a big difference. So today we're going to give you powerful tips that can help you learn more quickly.
These aren't quick tricks. These are strategies that really work when you use them regularly.
Exactly. We'll talk about things you can do every day, how to avoid common mistakes, ways to practice in a smarter way, and even how to stay motivated.
So grab your notebook or just listen carefully, because by the end of this episode, you'll have real, useful tools to help you learn English faster. Let's get started.
All right, let's start with the basics. Being consistent. One of the most important things for learning a language quickly is doing it regularly, not just sometimes. Think about it like exercising. Short workouts every day are better than one long workout once a week.
Exactly. It's better to study for 15 minutes every day than to study for 3 hours only once a week. Your brain needs to see and hear the language regularly to really learn it. Try to find a time each day to study, even if it's just for a little while.
Try to make English a part of your daily life. You don't need to sit with a textbook all the time. You can listen to a podcast while you cook, read a short news article during lunch, or review new words before you go to sleep. Use those free moments to connect with English.
Even 5 minutes here and there can add up. It's like brushing your teeth. You do it every day, not just once a week. And when you do it regularly, it becomes a habit, which makes learning much easier over time.
And once it's a habit, it's much easier to keep going. Learning a language isn't about big jumps. It's about taking small, steady steps. Celebrating small successes each day can also help you stay interested.
The next important tip: immerse yourself in the language. This means surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Go beyond just books and lessons.
Yes, change the language settings on your phone and social media to English. Watch your favorite TV shows with English subtitles, and then try watching without subtitles. Listen to English music and try to understand the words. Create an environment where English is all around you.
Try putting small labels on things in your house in English, like mirror, door, table. It might seem simple, but every time you see that word, your brain makes a connection.
Also, talk to yourself in English. Describe what you are doing. I'm drinking water. I'm opening the window. It's a great way to start thinking in English during the day without feeling nervous about talking to someone else.
Speaking of thinking in English, that's another key idea. Try not to translate everything in your head. It makes you slower and stops you from feeling the language naturally.
This is something many learners do, especially when they are starting. But over time, you should try to form your thoughts directly in English. Start with simple sentences and slowly make them more complex.
Start with simple sentences. Instead of thinking the words in your own language and then changing them to English, just try to think in English from the beginning. It might feel strange at first, but it makes a big difference.
It will feel a bit unusual at first, but the more you do it, the faster and more natural it will become. Your brain will start to connect ideas directly to English words without needing to go through another language.
Now let's talk about vocabulary. Many learners try to memorize long lists of single words, but this is not always the best way.
That's right. Instead of learning individual words, learn whole phrases or groups of words that often go together. For example, instead of just book, learn I'm reading a book, or this book is interesting.
Phrases give you context, which helps your brain remember better. They also teach you how words are used in real conversations and which words usually go together.
Also, focus on the words that are used most often. Did you know that just 1,000 words make up about 80% of everyday English? Learning these common words first will give you a strong base for understanding and speaking.
That's amazing. And many apps and websites have lists of the most frequent English words. Use these lists as your starting point, and then learn other words that are important for your interests and needs.
And don't forget to review regularly. Use flashcards, paper or digital, or special programs that help you remember words over time. Reviewing at the right times helps you keep the new words in your memory.
Okay, so now you know some words. But how do you practice speaking? Many learners don't have someone to talk to. This is a common problem, but you can still improve.
That's a big challenge for many people. But here's what you can do. Speak to yourself, record your voice and listen to it to hear how you sound, and try shadowing native speakers.
Shadowing means listening to a sentence in English and repeating it immediately, trying to copy how the speaker pronounces the words, the way their voice goes up and down, and the rhythm of their speech.
You can use videos on YouTube, talks from TED, or even this podcast. Pause and repeat what we say. It's a very helpful way to train your speaking and listening skills. Start with short sentences and then try longer ones.
And if you do have a friend or teacher to talk to, even online, practice having conversations regularly. Don't worry about making mistakes. The most important thing is to communicate.
In fact, let's say that again. Don't worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are not failures. They are how you learn and grow. Every mistake helps you understand the language better.
Yes. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something new about grammar, vocabulary, or how to say things. So don't be afraid of them. Be proud that you are trying and working hard to communicate.
Let's also talk about your attitude. How you think about learning can really affect how well you do. Having a positive attitude can give you a big boost.
If you believe that you are not good at languages or that English is too difficult, you will feel discouraged and might give up more easily.
Instead, try to believe these things. I am getting better every day. Mistakes help me learn, and English is a skill that I can develop. Try to have a positive way of thinking about learning.
Celebrate your progress, even the small things. If you learned 5 new words today, that's progress. If you understood a song or had a short conversation, that's a win. Recognize and value your efforts.
Be kind to yourself and stay motivated. Learning a language has good days and bad days, but keeping going is the most important thing. Find ways to make learning fun and interesting for yourself.
Now, let's look at some common mistakes that can slow down your learning. First, studying but never actually using the language.
Exactly. Don't just watch English videos without doing anything else. Talk about them, write about them, use the new words and phrases you learn in your own sentences. You need to use what you learn to really remember it.
Second, focusing too much on grammar at the beginning. Grammar is important, but don't get stuck on it. The main goal is to communicate. Focus on making yourself understood, and your grammar will improve more naturally over time.
Third, being afraid to speak. You can't improve your speaking without actually speaking. So open your mouth and practice. Even if you make mistakes at first, practice helps you get better.
Fourth, comparing yourself to others. Everyone learns at their own speed. Focus on your own journey and celebrate your own progress instead of comparing yourself to other people.
Fifth, giving up when it gets hard. Yes, English has difficult parts, but if you keep trying, you will succeed. Staying persistent is key to overcoming challenges in learning any language.
Now, let's try a short activity together. Repeat these sentences after me. Say them with confidence, even if you are alone. This helps you get used to the sounds and structures of English.
Ready? First, I'm learning English, and I'm proud of my progress.
Great. Next, I make mistakes, and that's how I learn.
Awesome. One more. Every day I speak better English.
Repeat these sentences a few times every day. They can help you feel more confident and speak more fluently, and they reinforce a positive attitude towards learning.
Before we finish, let's share some of our personal learning tips that might be a little different but have helped us.
For me, I really like watching English TV shows with subtitles. First in English, then without subtitles. This helps a lot with understanding spoken English and learning new words in context. I also pay attention to how native speakers use common expressions.
I use a journaling method. Every night, I write 3 to 5 sentences about my day in English. This helps me practice writing and think in English regularly. It's also a good way to review vocabulary I learned during the day.
I also listen to English podcasts while I'm doing chores or exercising. Even just hearing the language in the background helps your brain get more comfortable with the sounds and rhythm of English. And you might learn new words without even trying.
And I use voice notes. I record short messages to myself in English to practice speaking and hear how I sound. This helps me find areas where I need to improve my pronunciation and how smoothly I speak.
All great tips. So remember, study every day, use the language actively, focus on phrases and context, see mistakes as chances to learn, and most importantly,